You're listening to WooSox Insider, presented by your Worcester Red Sox.
Welcome back to WooSox Insider. I am Brendan Black. Dave Leonardi is not here today. He is off killing it at life. He just graduated from college, so we're giving him a little bit of time off here. But congratulations to Dave. With us today is a special guest. You'd recognize him from a few episodes ago. We have Corbin from Red Seat Radio, who actually was just at Polar Park this past weekend and was able to catch a game at the park. And I was able to show him around a little bit. And we ended up, that was a great game that ended up being played at the park there for your Worcester Red Sox, who now sit at 23-22 before their road trip here, which they are away from the park for 2 weeks, which officially ends spring baseball at Polar Park. The next time that the Worcester Red Sox will be playing at Polar Park, it will officially be summer baseball. It'll be nice. There will be no more worries. I'm considering it guaranteed there will be no more cold baseball games at Polar Park. It's all good weather from here out. But I wanted to bring Corbin back on, one, to kind of go over the overall experience at Red Seat Radio. I got to see the full crew in action at Polar Park, including a director of photography. We had a filmer, we had a producer, and then we had Corbin and myself walking around the park. So why don't we just we'll start there. 1 out of 10. Give me what's Polar Park.
Oh, it's easily. I mean, if you're talking in terms of just like pure production and view wise, is a 10 out of 10. I mean, everywhere in that park that you sit is a good view of the stadium, is what we realized. I think the biggest kind of takeaway there was no matter where you are in the park, you can see everything.
Yeah. So you had your general admission tickets, you had the DCU club pass as well. So where did you take, what parts of the park did you take in as to watch the game from, and what would you say was your favorite spot to watch a game from?
Yeah, so we started in the DCU club. We got there an hour before the game. Got a couple drinks, got a little bit of food. It was unlimited prime rib, which was pretty cool for $25. So not a bad deal there. So we took that in a little bit, and then we headed over to the Hanover deck, and that's where we spent most of the game, was on the Hanover deck. It was a little windy, but for the most part, the views from the Hanover deck were awesome. There was, your own drink cart. There was your own bathrooms. It was pretty cool. And that was all general admission entry as well. And then we headed over towards the craft corner, and we were there for a while. We were at the craft corner for, I'd say, the rest of the game. And then towards the end, we were just sort of in that general concourse area where Bobby Dalbec hit the walk-off single. So, yeah, we kind of got the whole view of everywhere, which was kind of cool.
Awesome. And so these games blend together for me. Were you there for the quote-unquote 15 or 515-foot home run for Bobby Dalbec?
I was, yes. I didn't realize it didn't look like it went 515 feet.
So one of the cool things about my job is that as I am, directing the in-game entertainment side of things, I'm also in a text chain with our broadcasters, our communication director, who all have connections. Like our communication director, the great Bill Wanless, has TrackMan in the press box. The MLB has TrackMan going. So every single time that a home run gets hit, within a minute, Bill Wanless has texted us all so that we can have the information of the exit velocity and the distance. And I was sitting there directing the game, and I'm looking down at my phone, making sure I'm keeping an eye on everything. And I look down and I see I think it was 117 or 116 exit velo in 515. And I went, no way. Like, there's just no way. And then followed up right after that, I'm not sure if you saw, but Alex Spear, the Boston Globe, and a known baseball statistician, and also just an overall great guy. I've met him a couple times. He's the nicest dude in the world. And of course, will talk your ear off about baseball. He'll talk to anyone about it. And he immediately came out with a tweet saying that the initial, I guess the initial like measurements that StatCast actually puts out are essentially like an extremely educated like guess, in that they go back and they will kind of cross-reference and they'll check everything. And to the best of my knowledge, they haven't gone back and edited those numbers. So that is the same thing that is measuring every single home run that happens in the big leagues. And Bobby Dalbec's home run, the thing that I was just astounded by, because one of my jobs as as directing the game is that, when we put up our home run graphic up on the board and we start playing Song 2 by Blur and there's all the lights going and everything like that, I'm saying to my graphics person, because I can't, if that ball hits the top of the wall and comes back in and I tell them home run, and then all of a sudden we start all of our graphics, it's like then we've really made a mistake. So I try to make sure I know that is a home run. The second it was hit, I was like, okay, ready for home run here, and just waiting for it to land. And what was so amazing to me was watching where that ball passed the light stand. And it was a little more than halfway up the light stand when it was out, that means that ball had still a while to go, and it ended up over our duck boat, which, you start adding all that up and the 515 number doesn't seem so wrong. So that was amazing. And then he comes through in the clutch in the end of that game as well. But turning it over to another thing. So as you got to see the game, we also got to do a really cool thing that with Red Seat Radio, where we were able to do a tour of the park. And I know that will be released pretty soon on your channel, correct?
Yeah, I don't know when these podcasts come out, but it will be out Tuesday the 23rd. So it should be out when this is out, I believe.
I think we're going to be going out right around the same time. So
all right, look at that.
Yeah. So, and I watched it back, not in vain, because I was just watching myself talk essentially, but I really appreciate the amount of time and effort that you all put into it, and you gave us at the Worcester Red Sox a really good chance to show off all the really cool features and to be able to really go into depth of what makes Polar Park special. And I know that you guys just eclipsed the 6,000 subscriber mark, which is awesome. And your fan base is a fan base that is dedicated to the Red Sox, and they want to know everything about the Red Sox, and they want to know it on a daily basis. So I think that's an incredible opportunity for us, and just hope that you and your team was able to have a great time at the park.
Yeah, it was like I said to you, and over text, it was absolutely incredible. I don't think even you describing kind of what we were doing going into it. I was excited, and then once we got out of it, I was just mind blown. Right, and I said it at the beginning of the video too. Like it's a longer video than what we're used to on my channel, where I'm used to putting out 10, 13-minute videos. This one's around 35, almost 40 minutes, and I physically could not cut down anymore because this is the most in-depth look at, I think, a minor league ballpark that you can get, right? Because it's not just, it is the cool spots around the stadium and stuff like that, but it's also a lot of how a stadium is run. And it's not just, Polar Park is kind of top notch when it comes to especially minor league stadiums in terms of how a game is produced. But just in general, if you're interested in sort of, how it goes from 0-3 to 1-3 on the board, or how they're able to zoom in for kiss cams, or how the broadcasts work, all of that, it's all in there. It's really, really incredible what you were able to show us.
Well, I'm glad you guys enjoy. I obviously love the park. I love showing people it. And it seems like you were the perfect audience, and your fans are the perfect audience for that kind of a tour. And tours are available every day at Polar Park, whether or not the team is there, just to let everyone know. But let's bring it back over to what is the best part of your channel, outside of just general news and all those type of things, like we talked about before, we kind of dug into some of the statistics, some things that were a little bit deeper. We won't necessarily go down that road today, but I just wanted to ask you, at this point in the season, Red Sox season, Blue Sox season, they're synonymous. They're running at the same time. Um, is there are there people on, because right now the Red Sox are getting healthy,
Mhm.
and they've had a lot of people who are, um, I wouldn't say overperforming. They're just excelling at this moment. They're playing really well. They're starting to really come into their own. I'm talking about a Jaron Duran. I'm talking about, guys like Tapia is playing great ball. There are Reyes comes out of nowhere and starts, tearing the cover off the ball. Um, and this is following injuries to what seemed to be the spark plug of our offense, Adam Duvall. And it just seems like out of nowhere, this team has started getting this depth. And then you got to think about it that, Whitlock's about to get back in. Trevor Story is in, the beginning stages of rehab and that kind of thing. And they hopefully expect him back for whatever this team is due for later in the season. So what I'm getting at is it seems like it's a crowded clubhouse.
Yeah, you could say
Is
that.
there is there there are a bunch of guys on the WooSox right now who seem like really, really great players, and they're tearing it up in AAA, whether they're pitchers or hitters. Is there anyone that you've seen or that you've had your eye on that you think there's no way they can't not be called up at some point?
Yeah, I actually think there's a couple, and you kind of hit the nail on the head there that it's going to be a really crowded clubhouse. Um, so I think in terms of position players, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for to see, these guys on the Worcester Red Sox kind of bust their way into the major league lineup, especially when you got guys like Adam Duvall, who's starting baseball activities again and way ahead of schedule than what originally was thought. You got guys like Trevor Story, who again is way ahead of schedule. Yu Chang should be with Worcester or with Portland sometime this week, right? So you're starting to get position players back a little bit. So for me, I'd be more focused on taking a look at the current pitching staff for the Worcester Woo Sox. And the biggest point of that is you're seeing guys like, you're seeing a lot of injuries, right? And we've kind of seen that sort of trend over the last couple of years, but it's a pretty normal thing to see a lot of injuries in the bullpen. And one of the most important things for a major league club is to have that depth in the minor league system. And so I think when you're looking at guys who are playing well enough to kind of bust their way into a major league lineup, you're looking at guys like Andrew Politi, who has a 1.50 ERA in the month of May so far this year. Um, that's a guy that I would keep an eye on in terms of, who's going to come up next for depth. Obviously, guys like Ryan Sheriff, who already had an appearance up this year. You just saw Brennan Bernardino got called up. We're recording this Monday, got called up today. And then sort of, I think the big one everyone's kind of looking at right now, well, there really are two, right? There's Shane Rohan, who just started his AAA campaign. So that should be a little ways off. But if he continues to pitch the way he pitched in AA, I wouldn't be shocked if towards the end of the year, they're looking for sort of a September call up, sort of a revamp of the bullpen, or maybe even a spot starter towards the end of the year in that September area. Because the way the Red Sox are playing right now, you're probably looking at either a game lead in a playoff spot going into September, late September, or you're looking at we got to get into a playoff spot. We're a game out. We're a game and a half out of a playoff spot. So I could see Shane Rohan being a factor there. Depending on how significant Brian Mata's injury is a guy who I think a lot of, especially big, like, Red Sox prospect viewers have been big on for a little bit, especially after his spring. Depending on how his injury goes and how he comes back, if he can sort of figure out his command issues a little bit, that could be a guy I think a lot of people would be excited to see come into the bullpen a little bit as we get further into the season. But outside of that, you've got guys like Mosqueda who could probably be a factor at some point. I know Murphy and what's the other lefty's name? I'm blanking right now. Brandon. Yeah, thank you. Brandon Walter are close or were close last year. I know they're struggling a little bit this year. But again, if you're talking about left-handed depth in a bullpen come a playoff race, those could be another two guys to keep your eye on. So I think a lot of the guys that you're going to see sort of on this Worcester Red Sox team making an impact at the major league level this season, outside of the guys who already have, Jaron Rand, Valdez, guys like that, is going to be mostly on the pitching side. And I think it's strictly because of just the logjam you kind of already have at the major league level in terms of position players.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it there. I think you know, it's pretty early for Drohan to tell. You know, he only had his one start. He had flashes. He was
Yeah.
really good at times, and then there was times where the ball was hit really hard off of him. And growing pains, it's fine. It's his first AAA start, or at least his first AAA start, first start at Fuller Park, and again, he had some really good moments where it just seemed like he was mowing them down, and then he had other times where he ran into probably one of the most talented, or the highest level hitters that he's pitched against. And that's what's going to happen. And I think that's another thing that can be said about guys like, Chris Murphy and Brandon Walter, who I think at the beginning of the year or before the season started, people would assume they would be the first on the list for, call ups to the big leagues. And right now they're both, you look at their numbers and you just look at the numbers alone and not how they're pitching in games and everything like that, you would go, oof, wow, okay, they've taken a step back. But the other thing to think about is there's a reason why baseball teams have as many minor league players as they do and as many minor league teams as they do, is so that they can constantly be working on things. So maybe it's just a factor of Brandon Walter getting back, getting healthy, and then also he's mixing in a new pitch into the mix, or Chris Murphy's working on something that, they say, once you get this down, then we're going to be ready to be confident to bring you up. On the other side of things, if you're just in the right place at the right time and you are as talented as you are, they're going to call you up. And Manuel Valdez was tearing it up in Worcester. You could just tell he was kind of a step above. So talk to me, what have you seen out of him? I know there were shaky defensive moments, especially at the start, but then you could just see that he was ready to challenge any pitcher that was on the mound.
Yeah, he seems like a natural born hitter, right? It doesn't seem like it's something, and obviously he did work extremely hard on getting to where he was. But when I say it doesn't look like he's trying at the plate, it's almost a term of endearment because it generally looks like hitting is a second nature. Yeah, it's second nature to him, right? It was like he was born with that bat in his hand. So, and I think everyone kind of understood that Valdez's bat should be able to play at a major league level. I mean, you look at what he was able to do last year in the AAA level, both with the Houston organization and then with the Red Sox organization. And it was always kind of a matter of, okay, where are you going to be able to hide him on the field? Because it really was a question of his defense. And so coming up to the major league level, that first night, it was like, oh boy, like, I don't know if he'll ever be able to play on a major league field because he just can't catch a ball. But ever since then, I mean, he's not going to be a gold glove defender by any means, but he's been serviceable. He's been, I don't think any Red Sox fan would say they were truly worried anytime a ball was hit over to him after that first sort of night. So I think what we're seeing from Valdez is just sort of what we've been seeing all along, just at another level.
Yeah, he's and he's the type of guy, because I remember Cora, I think in spring training, said something along the lines like they were just asking about, well, what do you think about Valdez? He can hit, and that's what he could do. He has that wide, powerful, almost Juan Soto-esque like stance. And then when he connects on a ball, it's something to see. And he plays the game hard. He plays it with a little bit of swagger. I think he's going to be a really good fit for this team. But at the same time, because of how young he is and because of his options and those type of things, he's a guy that we could see back down in Worcester, not out of a fault of his own playing, but just because there is again the crowded clubhouse. So it's just kind of very much a push and pull. But on the other side of things, just on the full like team aspect thing, I know you've talked about it a lot on your channel, but just talk about how the Red Sox are really hitting their stride right now, and how the impact of a guy like Jaron Duran playing as well as he is, like what kind of impact does that have on that lineup overall?
Oh, Jeremy Duran's impact is it's incredible, right? He affects every aspect of the game. And I really dove into this when he started going off when he first came up. The changes Jaren Duran has made, not just this year, but every single year throughout his minor league career, throughout his major league career, it one proves that he never stopped working, and two, it proves that hey, if you're not, sometimes you fail at the next level, you can always come back, figure it out, and get there. It was never a talent issue with Jaren Duran. It was always just how to generate that talent and kind of conform it to work at a major league level. And I think that's what we're seeing this year. We've always known that Jaren Duran had this ability. He had the elite speed, right? He's one of the fastest players I've ever seen. Not the fastest. David Hamilton will always have that one, I think. He's always had this sort of natural power, right? But then he goes to the gym this offseason and puts on 10 pounds of pure muscle. And he's always had this sort of natural ability to make contact with baseballs. But last year, he was trying so hard to try and not be himself, but be what everyone wanted him to be. And it took a toll on him mentally. And I think that's really what affected him last year. So going into this year, I think one of the biggest things for Jaren Duran was the mental side, was figuring out how can I be myself at the major league level. And, guys like, and I talk about this a lot on my channel, but one of the biggest things with the 2023 Red Sox going into the season, right, was if they're going to be successful, it's going to start in this clubhouse. It has to start in this clubhouse. And I think one of the best things about this 2023 team is you've got a culture in the clubhouse right now that's sort of allowing these younger players to just be themselves. And you're seeing that translate on the field. And to me, that's the biggest reason why Jaren Duran and Emmanuel Valdez, even Tristan Casas to some degree, have been able to have success at the major league level just kind of out of the gate. And it feels sort of like all of a sudden, but this has been something that's been leading up for a very long time. But yeah, what Jaren Duran is bringing to the table right now is speed, pretty elite defense compared to, last year he was in the bottom percentile and outs above average. Now he's in the 84th. Like, he's a well above average center fielder. So you add in the speed, you add in the defense. He's got a pretty decent amount of power, right? He's not driving the ball out every other game, but he has some of the he's the second most doubles on the Red Sox right now. And then you look at sort of what he's been able to do on the base pass, and it's destroy hitters. He's stealing everything he possibly can. He's throwing pitchers off. It's been his impact has been incredible, especially after losing a guy like Adam Duvall, right? Because I think the whole entire Red Sox nation, whether you're a WooSox fan, whether you're a Red Sox fan, was holding their breath. They're like, oh no, here we go again. Last year, pummeled by injuries. This year, already kind of pummeled by injuries. But Jaren Duran coming in and being able to fill that hole, and obviously he's not doing the historic stuff Adam Duvall is doing, but being able to sort of move the lineup around and be that versatile option in this lineup has been, I think, one of the most underrated pieces of this 2023 team so far. Like, you're talking about an all-star caliber Jaren Duran right now. And there's a very good chance he makes an all-star team if he plays like this until July.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things is, you said it right. He's a young player. We're Red Sox fans. Red Sox Nation in general is a very dedicated fan base, so much so to the point that we know about these prospects like a Brian Mata that we've been talking about for 3 years, about, these guys who they stay in our brains for so long. So we've been hearing Jaren Duran, like, this kid is going to be it. He's going to be like the next thing. And then, he breaks into the bigs, and he had some bad moments on what ended up not being the best Red Sox team that was ever fielded. And there was a lot of negativity towards the team in general. And I just think that whole situation for him could have, if he was, not as tough as he is, that's enough to break a young player down and like start to really lose what makes you to be a great player, which is just being yourself and playing the game. And I think there was an article in the Boston Globe that talked about how this offseason, he worked out a bunch, but he hung out with his buddies, his old baseball friends, and just got the love of the game back and everything like that. And really just, started treating it as, the childhood game that he grew up on. And I think that is, your mindset, mental health, all of that is so important. No matter how talented you are, you could be the best player in the world, but if you're allowing the outside noise to kind of get into your headspace, then that can affect your physical ability to be the best player that you can be. I think he's one of those guys that, like, just in the Worcester Red Sox in general, like in the organization, it's like we love having him around because, who doesn't want to go out and see Jaron Duran play at Polar Park? But at the same time, it's like, we want that guy to stay up there and succeed and be, the best player that he can be. So, but always welcome at Polar, Jaron, that. But so let's also talk about, there's a guy like on the WooSox right now, Jorge Alfaro. He is a MLB vet. He is signed on a contract that has an upward mobility clause that June 1st. So we're less than 2 weeks away.
Right
and an
there.
upward mobility clause means that if you're not called up to the Red Sox by that time, that the Red Sox either have to release you or trade you. The last time I checked, was batting like 344. He had 8 or 9 home runs. Every single time that guy steps up at Polar Park or in a WooSox uniform, he's doing damage. Talk about the catcher's room for the Red Sox. We have Connor Wong, former WooSox, and now is a staple on this team. He's a guy that just really come into his own.
Yeah. I think it's going to be, I'm not going to lie to you, it's going to be I think it's going to be very difficult for the Red Sox to kind of make that decision, right? Mm-hmm. Because you've got Jorge Alfaro's offense, which is one of the best offenses in all of AAA right now, right? He's a guy who's absolutely tearing the cover off the baseball. But then you look at who's on the team right now, and Connor Wong isn't the best offensive catcher at the moment. He comes and goes offensively for this team a little bit. And we've kind of seen that throughout the time he's been up here. But defensively, right now, he leads all of Major League Baseball in defensive WAR. Or I'm sorry, he's second. He just went down to second in all of Major League Baseball in defensive.
That's any
WAR,
position,
right? That is any position. Yeah.
Wow.
So you're talking about an elite of an elite defensive catcher. And it's just difficult to make that decision. Then you got Reese McGuire, who's behind him right now, who is also hitting above 300 right now, and he plays pretty decent defense as well. And so I think the sort of biggest roadblock for Jorge Alfaro is that he doesn't have the defense, I think, to take over for Connor Wong, for Reese McGuire, because offensively, it would be fantastic. Offensively, I think he'd be a great spark plug addition, especially power-wise from the right-hand side, which is something the Red Sox have been lacking for a little bit. But defensively, I don't know how the Red Sox replace Connor Wong specifically, and I don't know if they would go with 2 righty catchers if they have the option of Reese McGuire too, who's doing really well. The kind of catch here is that, yes, he has that upward mobility clause, but a part of that too is that he can leave if he gets a better offer. And something we saw before he went off in Worcester, keep in mind, is that after spring training, he didn't get any other offers. Right. So he ended up in the Red Sox system as opposed to taking another offer and seeing, hey, maybe we can put you in the back end of the bench and see if we can get you 1 or 2 plate appearances a week, something like that. So that's something to keep in mind a little bit. Is he was going off in spring training as well. And that defense was just not major league capable enough to land him an offer on any other team. So in my opinion, there's a pretty decent chance that even if the Red Sox don't utilize their upward mobility clause, that he stays in the organization.
Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. I mean, that's another thing, you could have a whole entire podcast series on just MLB transaction rules. They're so insane.
Thousands.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he's also just like, he's a great guy. He's a really, really nice guy. He's also just like one of those people that or one of those players that the crowd just naturally takes to. He hasn't done he hits home runs. He's a big dude who mashes the ball. So people love him. But like before this, the Worcester fan base didn't really know too much about Jorge Alfaro. And now it's like he steps up to the plate and Polar Park explodes. It's pretty cool to see what players a fan base takes to and everything. And I think Fenway Park would take to him very quickly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he would be a vibes guy 100%. People would love the hair. People would love the attitude. People would love the home runs, right? It'd be like,
Yeah.
when you were young, who was your favorite baseball player? It wasn't a guy like Ozzie Smith who was great defensively. No, it was David Ortiz, it was Manny Ramirez, guys who hit tanks. That's what
Yeah.
Jorge Alfaro does.
Yeah. And it's funny, he was preseason, like right before the season started, we have these cool green screen like graphics that we run during our starting lineup reads at the park. And we had all the players go up there, and I asked them to go in front of the green screen, put the bat on your shoulder, show me the bat, do this thing. And I was like, then just look at Jorge. Just wanted to smile the whole time. There's some guys wanted to be like, tough, mean mug it and things. It was him and Narciso Crook. Him and Alfaro are just like, you just see them and it's just immediately like, well, I'm happy. They're just happy guys.
Yeah, those are the best guys to have around too. They just make everything so much more enjoyable,
Absolutely. And it's baseball. You're putting in long hours. The games can get long. You got to be able to like you said earlier, you got to have a clubhouse. That is the biggest thing in baseball, is that if you get a group of guys who believe in each other and believe and want to win for each other, and they want to play their best because they know that pitcher is trying his best and this guy is ripping the cover off the ball, it's like they all want to play for each other. That in baseball is definitely not a trackable stat or anything like that. Maybe one day in the future we'll have some
I'm sure
AI
we will have a
thing.
metric at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be new money ball. We got to think about what
Yeah.
that would be called. It's vibes ball. But yeah, this was, I think this was great. I think it was a cool little just kind of insight to where both the Red Sox and the WooSox are at this point in the year. And hopefully, as we get further into this season, maybe after the All-Star break and that kind of stuff, when we can really see when the Red Sox are making those moves where, it's the trade deadline or even past the trade deadline when they start to make their final, playoff roster and that kind of stuff. I'd love to have you back on and we can go back through some of these stats and everything. And obviously, I'd love to have you back at Polar Park and to catch another game.
Yeah,
but
fantastic.
but yeah, so before I let you go here, I'll give you the stage. What's some things we can look for Red Seat Radio coming up?
Oh man, the biggest one obviously is if you are interested at all and you have not been to Polar Park yet, or you're interested in learning more about Polar Park, the most comprehensive Polar Park tour I think that is physically available will be live the second you are watching this or reading or listening to this podcast. As for stuff going on with me, I'll be recapping Red Sox series. So if you're interested in that, I'll be live streaming Red Sox games. So if you want to come by and say hi, and just, deep dives into what makes the Red Sox the Boston Red Sox. You can find it on Red Sea Radio, youtube.com.
Awesome. Well, Corbin, thank you very much. Once again, Worcester Red Sox won't be back at Polar Park for a couple of weeks, but you can still follow along and on WooSox and all of our social accounts. And tickets are available for all of our June games coming up. Then we got July games. We got 2 fireworks, July 4th and July 7th, all within the same week. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. It is the coolest experience ever to watch fireworks in a minor league baseball park.
It's the most American thing.
Most American thing in the world. But
hot dogs, apple pies, and fireworks in center field.
And table talk pies.
Table talk pies.
Perfect. Well, Corbin, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. And so for WooSox Insider, I'm Brendan Black. Again, congratulations to Dave Leonardi. And we will talk to you in hopefully just under a week.